All right, welcome back to Five on Fridays. I'm fired up. We've got Ashley. She's back. Ashley, how are you today?
I am great. How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. I'm good. Trying to avoid the hot heat, staying hydrated, protect my skin, wear
Yes.
hats, all the
Yes.
stuff that we've learned. Megan Alt, our former friend on a previous episode, gave us all kinds of great summer safety tips as it relates to protecting your skin. So go check out that episode if you haven't. But today, Ashley, we want to continue talking to you. Last time, we talked about your 4 rules for food safety. If you didn't see
Yes.
that video, go watch. It's a great episode. Ashley gives some great tips. But today, I want to move the party outside. I want to talk a little
Yes.
bit about things we should think about if we're having parties outdoors, whether that be picnics, cookouts, the whole 9 yards. Ashley, I'll turn it over to you. What do we need to know about eating outside this summer?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandon. There are a couple things to keep in mind because we want to have fun. We want to enjoy the summer. But like you said, it's hot. We got to stay hydrated. We got to protect ourselves. And we need to think about that too with food when we're outside. And I think the first thing is really, when we're eating outside, it levels up in the challenge. Like you said, last week we covered all the food safety stuff, which is awesome. Check it out. But now we're outside. It's 85 degrees. We have an extra challenge, right? I know we touched on this last week. I want to bring it home again today because it's so important, is how long we leave that food outside for. So we do not want food setting out, on a picnic table, on a, table in our backyard for longer than 2 hours. Once it's longer than those 2 hours, that bacteria may have gotten to an unsafe level that could make us sick. And if it's 90 degrees or more, as it has been here in Columbus, we really want it. We're thinking like an hour, right? It's going to be key to serve out those smaller portions of food. Once an hour has passed, we want to bring that bowl inside. We want to clean it. We don't want to just add the new cooled food, from our fridge into it. We want to then make sure that that's being rotated, that's being checked on, and we're not letting that food sit out, which could make people sick. Also, just rule of thumb is making sure you're washing out the container and the utensils. We don't think that sometimes. We might stick the utensils from the potato salad, the old one and the new one, but that's going to still harbor that bacteria. So we want to rinse those off in between.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I didn't really think about the utensils. That's definitely something to keep in mind. If we're serving, certainly if you've got stuff that has been sitting out and you use this to serve, at least clean it, start out.
Yep.
Even if you use the same utensil, just make sure it's cleaned and refreshed for the new batch that you've got going on.
Yes.
So, what specifically about picnics? Talk to me about when I'm not near any of the things that we just talked about, whether it be rinsing and washing or refrigerating and cooling. I've brought food with me. I'm not near home. Now what do I do?
Yes. And this is where it gets like leveled up even more, right? We're not even close to our fridge, but a couple easy things. So coolers are going to be essential. I recommend having a cooler for like the food that we're keeping cool and a separate cooler for our drinks. People are in and out of the drink one, and every time we open it, that temperature is getting lower. So have one that's for that chilled food. So if we don't have our refrigerator there, we have that cooler that we're using to kind of switch the food out. I recommend a thermometer in that cooler as well, just so we know we want it to be below 40 degrees. If it's a 95-degree day and all of a sudden we're seeing that cooler getting higher, we know that food in there probably may not be safe. Washing out coolers between use is really important too. You don't want like all that bacteria and just the smell and the gunk. Other things that I do with picnics is washing our hands is so key, right? I bring a jug of water, bring some soap, bring some like paper towels, making sure you're washing your hands. You can use that to wash the utensils. Worst case scenario, at least have some hand sanitizer or something to kind of be able to keep clean if you're at the picnic and you don't have access.
I know for me, it's good to know. What's more likely though is for me to be cooking outside, but at my house.
Yes.
Right? Not so far away from the picnic. That's an occasional thing that I would do. But more regularly, I'd be grilling, I'd be outside. So let's talk about when that stuff is around, but you're still outside.
Yeah. So another great point is like we're cooking not outside, right? We're out of the safety of our kitchen. And honestly, this applies whether you're in your backyard or you're like at the park at a picnic. There's like things we want to keep in mind. So, the food storage and serving it out is important, but we want to grill safely, right? So this is where my trusty meat thermometer, I recommend, again, you can go back to last episode and really learn about that bacteria and such, but we want to cook things at a temperature that's high enough to kill the bacteria. Chicken is going to be the one that's the highest, usually like 165 degrees. Hamburgers and hot dogs, like 160. And this is just, again, steaks, a great way to see. Fish is going to be a little lower, so like 145 degrees. But you just don't want to undercook it because then you have that bacteria risk. At the same time, you don't want to overcook it because then we get this risk of carcinogens or something like that.
Wait a minute. Last time we were on this call, you scared me with some terminology. You
Yes.
just said carcinogen, and I do know that means cancer causing. Are you telling me that I could get cancer from doing my grilling outside?
I'm telling you that grilling done unsafely could increase your risk for developing certain cancers. And
Okay.
there's a couple reasons why. So first of all, the actual like cooking of that meat, you know, that char that we're like, ooh, yum, that char tastes good. Unfortunately, it creates these substances. We call them heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Had to like cheat on how to say that one. We call them HCAs and PCAs. Keep it simple. But basically, these are things that form when meat's cooked at high temperatures, or when like the drips have gone down and then it creates that smoke and comes back up, or even that just like charring, you know, when the things flame and you get that charred. Unfortunately, those we've associated with risks with certain cancers. The other less fun piece of news I have before I tell you all the good news and how to do it safely is that red meats, processed meats, so we're thinking hot dogs, deli meat, all of those types of things, we see an increased risk for certain types of cancers, including like colon cancer with them. So we want to be cognizant of like what we're putting on our plate. We want to be cognizant of how we're cooking it. Yeah. Sorry to be a downer on your picnic podcast.
Uh, no, I appreciate the information, right? It's important to know, it's important to consider. I do want to know, however, what sort of things can we do? Ashley, what tips do you have for us so that we can reduce all of these risks? We know that there's inherent risk with certain things, but there are some steps we can take to lower that risk.
Totally. And this is what I'm excited about. I hate to be the downer and be like, oh, this is bad, but there's a couple steps that we can do. I have these like 3 key things to think about. If we're thinking grilling, how do we do it safely? The first one is like getting the red meat out, getting in other colors. Not saying you can't do hamburgers or hot dogs or any of these things that are considered red meat, but we're going to think like kind of the portions of them. So rather than like, yeah, I had 2 hot dogs and a hamburger today, it's like, what can we bring in with the other stuff? Things like chicken and fish, but then vegetables and even fruit. You can have a lot of fun grilling that. In fact, we did a Healthy Columbus video years ago, I think, with like grilling peaches, and you know, you can grill like lettuces, you know, you can make these veggie grill packs that I love. I'll put them in foil. I cook them on the grill. It gives them this nice, yummy flavor. You know, if you like that charred, you can throw like, you know, make kebabs with your peppers and onions and get the char on there if you'd like. Not only is that going to be getting out some of the stuff that we know could be cancer causing, it's bringing in all sorts of healthful cancer fighting colors, nutrients, phytonutrients. So that's my first tip. The second, and this is where I get really excited, is marinating your meats. So what we've found is those heterocyclic amines, the HCAs, their formation is reduced 92 to 99% if we
Wow.
marinate it, right? So that's like, we're saving our burgers, we're saving our meat. We want to marinate it for at least 30 minutes. And just as a food safety tip, I always say marinate it in the fridge, right? We don't want to like let our meat sit out the 90-degree while it marinates. So marinate it in the fridge. And we think it's the acid in there that has the most impact. So we want to have some sort of like citric acid or vinegar, lemon juice, lime juice, you know, vinegars. But we've also seen that herbs and spices can be really potent in preventing the formation of those HCAs. We're thinking maybe even the olive oil. So say you're doing a burger, you may not marinate that burger, but like throwing in lots of herbs and spices is going to help. Actually, I have a really good marinade recipe that if we could pop in the description on YouTube. But really, you know, just get creative with it. A quick rule of thumb, you want about a half a cup marinade for every pound of food. And like I said, total immersion is not necessary. You just want it in there at least a half hour though. And making sure you have some sort of acid, be it citric acid or a vinegar base. And then the last kind of tip is really, it's all about the cooking technique, right? So we want to trim the fat, the less fat to drip off and, you know, drip down on the coals and smoke back in, and the less chance to get those carcinogens in there. You don't want to like stab your meat with a fork and let the drippings drip out. So use a spatula, flipping it frequently, right? So like we're flipping it more frequently so we're not getting it real burned, but still making sure that it's cooked thoroughly. And then keeping the flames off the food, right? Like that's kind of basic grilling 101, but we don't want those flare-ups. We don't want the food to catch fire because then it's formed those. But really like doing those 3 things, you can still, you can not even reduce your cancer risk. You can help fight it, getting more colors in, and you know you're going to be safe. Feel better?
Okay.
Feel better?
I
Okay.
do. I feel like you always leave us with important little tools that we can incorporate. And that's important. One thing for us to hear and learn about all these different food science pieces of the puzzle that are not great for us. But there are sensible things we can do to either reduce our risk or make it safer for us in general. And I love that. I love that you teach us that and give us those tools for sure.
Totally. And they're easy tools, right? It's like, don't set your food out for more than 2 hours. Keep those temperatures, make sure things are cool, make things are hot, get those colors in, marinate your meats. Like you're good to go. You're going to have a great 4th of July or whatever outdoor picnic you're doing.
I love it. I love it. That sounds good. And I know I'm going to tease the next episode, are we going to talk about leftovers?
Yes, we are going to talk about leftovers. So in terms of food safety, obviously that's important. You know, quick little rule of thumb before we delve into the next episode, but you don't want to keep things longer than 7 days in your fridge. Oftentimes it's less. We'll go into that. But leftovers can also be a really great opportunity to kind of stretch. I mean, talk about budget. You know, every food's expensive. We can stretch our dollar. We can get in more healthy food. So yeah, we'll delve into all things leftovers next time.
I love it. That sounds
Yeah,
good. I can't wait to talk about it from next episode.
me neither.
I'm glad we got a chance to talk to you today. Ashley, as always, thank you for your time and your expertise. We appreciate it.
You are welcome. Great to see you, Brendan.